Hey, so it's Rick Carson, and I'm doing a little bit of an intro for the video that I made at FBT Studios in Detroit when I had a chance to see the SSL Oracle. I was very excited that night. I got to stay late, got to put my hands on the desk and mix a song. And I'm going to tell you all about that and my feelings about the fact that I could actually accomplish that in a second. But before I get into that, I just want to talk about the Oracle and the recording revolution and what I believe. And in this video, you're going to hear about how I feel like the Oracle is not a toy. And I feel that way because the Oracle is clearly, deeply rooted in the history and tradition that is inline recording consoles and mixing consoles. And you can just see that by the nomenclature of small and large faders and the way that you can route things around. But also, I believe that some of those concepts are going to be some of the concepts that may seem foreign to a younger user. So for me, I understand a lot of these concepts and can walk into this thing with a pretty good head wrapped around a lot of what's happening just because of how much time that I've spent on my own SSL console, the 6000, where it's an inline console and I need to know, which status I'm in, and I need to know all about flip and VCA to monitors and how these things operate to know where signal's going and where it's eventually going to end up. And if I didn't know some of those fundamental concepts, I don't think that I would be able to tell the internet that I was able to sit down and mix a song on this console without a manual. And I'm about to do that, which I want you guys fully to know. I was able to sit down and mix a song on the console without a manual. And I am actually going to hopefully be going to do that again here very, very soon, to sit down and mix a song on the Oracle without a manual, because the Oracle's an SSL. And if you know how an SSL works, you're going to have a good time getting into the Oracle. There may be a couple things that you have to, twiddle a little bit to get to where you're going. But for the most part, it's knob for function. And then if it's not, there's these little monitor icons that are right next to the majority of the sections on the desk. So if you need to blow them up onto the TVT screens in front of you, you could do that by just finding what you would like to see more of and then just pushing the monitor buttons until you see more of it and can start turning buttons. And then there's also a knob that will allow you to focus on those monitors and just go through all of the knobs till you find the one that you want, select it, and then start turning it. So you'll be able to get around it. And, I won't feel like a liar in saying that you don't need a manual and I didn't need a manual if we all understand and are on the same page that the reason why I feel that is because the console is deeply rooted in the history and architecture of inline recording consoles. And I happen to know a little bit about those things. So with that, hey everyone, it's Rick Carson. Today we're not at the beautiful FBT Studios. We are in Ferndale, Michigan at the beautiful FBT Studios, where we were invited by our friends Jake and Phil to come check out this new SSL Oracle console. And I cannot say how excited I am to actually be in front of this thing. There's been a lot of hype about whether this is the future of the recording studio, whether this is a recording studio revolution. And I have to say, after getting my hands on it, I actually really like it. It feels very, very good. And there's a lot of people who are asking at home whether this feels like a toy. And I can say without a doubt that I do not feel like this is a toy. This is a professional piece of equipment that I think any of us would love to own at home. And it's really, really intuitive. When it comes to a digital control piece of gear like this, the one thing that I'm always scared of is, am I going to end up in another Euphonics CS3000 system where I don't know what's going on? I can't get through a session without a manual. I have that same sort of feeling when I've used consoles like the Neve Genesis. I've heard that they're a lot better since the new Neve Genesis Black versions have come out. But ultimately, when I first sat down at that console, I wasn't able to get almost anything done. It was very, very unintuitive. And this console does not feel like that. You have a lot of knob per function functionality that goes on here. You have the ability to control each equalizer at the channel level. And that feels really good. To be real, the only thing that really threw me for a loop and that I kept catching myself doing was it was so easy for me to work on this console, and it felt so familiar with my SSL that I would be turning on EQs and I was just going, and these EQs only have two knobs. So this Q knob is also the frequency knob, and you have to push it between to switch between the two functions. And I was just jumping from gain to frequency and then going to the next band, assuming that this was going to be the Q control, just like it was on my console at home in SSL 6000. And it is not. It is, the gain control for the next band. And I would just, end up cranking the crap out of these low mid bands, just trying to move quickly because this desk does feel great. There are some things that you need to know what you're doing. You need to know how the, display functions, work, and to see where you're trying to go. But it's really nice because there's a lot of nomenclature that's right on the desk that shows these things. If you're looking for something that has to do with a display, then it literally has the photo of a little display everywhere across the console for you to get around. And then another big thing is that even if you get fully lost trying to navigate through what I would consider some of the finer motor functions of the console, there's these two dedicated scroll navigation wheels for each one of the panels, as well as the master panel, that you can just use to scroll through any of the functions on this console. So ultimately, if you need to see something, I think it's relatively quick to be able to just get around through the desk. And as someone who has spent less than, probably 30 or 40 minutes messing around with this thing, I could mix a song on it. I could get through a song. I could get through a session. I could record something. I believe that I could patch in outboard gear. I could send to it. This console personally doesn't have automation on it, but I could see where they're going with the desk. And I think that if there was automation, I don't think that I would be lost in it in the way that a lot of other automation systems are confusing. Ultimately, for the people at home, what I believe is that if you do not understand how a large format console works, an inline console works with a small fader path and a large fader path, then this console may be confusing to you. If you do understand those concepts, then those things are going to be what makes this thing not feel like a toy and feel like a very, very powerful tool. And ultimately, my whole, conversation today has been about how quickly do I believe that I can get around on this. And after being in front of it, I believe it's actually very quickly. But what's even more special is after this, which is when you go and save the console and then you come back to it and you recall it, and it recalls the whole desk in about 15 seconds. You see everything move, every light change, and that is just so forward thinking for an actual analog console that feels this good and sounds this good. If you are into the sonics of what I would consider new SSL stuff, if you're happy with the way an AWS sounds, I think you're going to love how this thing sounds. And I think that you're going to really, really like using it because you're going to be familiar with the concepts that it brings to the table. It's just a little bit of a different way to interact with them. And ultimately, I think that if you spend the time, you could have a lot of fun making records with this desk. Thank you for joining me. Catch up with it. Bye.